Good afternoon, everyone. So today I'm going to do a session on personal statements, and I'm going to take you through hopefully a pretty comprehensive guide of what to think about, how to write them, and give you some hints and tips as to things you can do. Your first port of call should always be the UCAS website, and all of the examples I have created in this presentation are fictional. The quotations and books or articles that I've referenced are correct, so hopefully this should help give you some ideas. Personal statements. A guide. The personal statement is 4,000 characters, it's 47 lines, and I would recommend that you use the UCAS website, the link of which I'll put in my notes with the video, and also a webinar from Lady Margaret Hall, Oxford, which is our Link College, and I've also emailed you a worksheet from our Link College of Christ's, Cambridge. How do I get ready to write a personal statement? First things first, watch my previous session. It talks about the process of applying and goes through what steps you take when. Firstly, research the courses you want to study. Research the universities you want to study at. If you're applying to a joint honours course, so where you're studying two subjects, that's a really careful thing to do. We can help you do that, but your personal statement goes the same to all the universities. So it's worth saying what you'd enjoy about each of those subjects that you study or that you are interested in studying, and finding a careful balance between those two or three subjects. The personal statement is only one part of your whole application to university. It is a big part, and it's one that often students get worried about, but there are lots of other things that you'll put on your form to really show your skills. But having said that, you want your personal statement to be accurate and show you on the page. Get people to check it through. Your subject teachers, your personal tutor, the head of department if appropriate, and of course us as a careers team. Don't be afraid to show it to lots of different people. Bug your family, your friends to check yours through with them. The rest of your UCAS form has to be correct. It's the most official document you'll probably send off for a good while, so it needs to be right. Your qualifications need to be correct. We will talk through that in careers lessons in a couple of weeks, so don't worry too much about how you put your qualifications into a UCAS form. All the UCAS form will be sorted out and will be taught to you in the careers sessions you're going to have in a couple of weeks. So don't worry too much about that. I would suggest you find your GCSE certificates now in readiness for careers lessons, so you can add things to your form as soon as you've had the information from your teacher. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's look at some examples of personal statements. And as I said before, these are fictional. What do you think of this? I love science. In lessons in physics, we did a session on black holes, and the maths fascinated me. At GCSE, I got all 9s in science and was best in the class. Since getting to Hereford Sixth Form College, I've really enjoyed the way physics is made real world and how useful it is. I enjoy learning about particles and recently went on a trip to CERN. I can't wait to do a science degree, as I think careers in STEM lead to really good jobs. Okay, sounds good. Let's look at the positives first of all. What do we learn about the student? We learned they're very bright. They got all 9s in science. That's fine, but you will put those in your qualifications. And this is really important. Write this down. You do not need to tell us the grades that you've got in either your GCSEs or any musical qualifications or anything else. It will be on your form. Don't write about the grades you have already got in your personal statement. They will be on your form. So you don't need to say at GCSEs that you were best in the class. That might be worth saying. That shows excellence. Great news. Put that in. We don't need to know the grades. We know them already. Since getting to Hereford Sixth Form College, they know where you're studying. So you'll be putting Sixth Form College there already. Again, for example, you could say, since beginning A-levels, I've really enjoyed. Far fewer characters. I've really enjoyed the way physics is made real world. Great starting point. How useful it is. Positives are that I can see you're thinking about your physics, but I'm wondering, what is it about the way physics is real world? I enjoy learning about particles and recently went on a trip to CERN. Perfectly good. But I want to know, what did you think about when you went to CERN? What did it make you think about? What interested you? Was it the building? Was it actually seeing the Large Hadron Collider? Going on a trip in itself doesn't actually show me that you want to study physics. It shows me that you were able to go on a trip. I actually don't necessarily see from this why you love learning about particles. What did you do because of the trip? Did you then go and read about how it works? What did you do because of that interest? And then this last statement, I can't wait to do science degrees, as I think careers in STEM lead to really good jobs. It's good that you're thinking about a career, but it might be more interesting to say, what is it about a career in STEM? Is it that the field is constantly changing, that science constantly evolves as more research is done, and that you want to be involved in that exciting forefront of research? That would be a more exciting statement than that you want to do a science degree because it leads to good jobs. Does it really show me your passion for the subject? Not at the moment. I can see you're bright, but I knew that from your qualifications. Okay, let's have a look at another one. What frustrates me about the chemistry curriculum so far is that I find I always want to have more depth than is available to me in lessons. In learning terminology and balancing equations, which is formulaic, although useful, what really intrigues me about chemistry was first suggested in an HE Plus masterclass session about DNA damage and cancer cells. As a result of this, I decided to read Anne Kiltie's research into muscle invasive bladder cancer. What fascinated me was the way they were looking at how the histone decolletase inhibitor panobibistat allowed for some DNA repair. Because of this, I decided to regularly read the Annals of Oncology and look forward to learning about the way gene editing can use T cells in order to target cancer treatment in the future. Now, in order to prepare for this session, I had to do quite a bit of research because chemistry, as many of you know, is not my speciality. So I apologize if my pronunciation is way off. But first things first, let's have a look at what's good about this imaginary personal statement. What do we learn here? What do we see the student doing? So let's have a little focus upon it. So the first thing, I find I always want to have more depth than is available to me in lessons. That shows you see the lessons as a springboard. That might be worth even writing down. That you see the lessons as a springboard. You enjoy the lessons, you might be challenged in the lessons, but you want more. In learning terminology and balancing equations, which is formulaic although useful, so you're saying you enjoy the lessons, but you find it a little bit formulaic. You are searching for more. What really intrigues me about chemistry was first suggested in an HE Plus masterclass session about DNA damage in cancer cells. Now, going to HE Plus in itself is fine, but if you did attend HE Plus, you took something that was suggested in the session and you've done something with it. And that's a really good hint as to what is to come. Show me your first thought, your interest, and then what did it help you think about next? Let's carry on. As a result of this, I decided to read. Great. You decided to read, you decided to watch YouTube, you decided to watch a TED Talk, you took an interest. You read beyond the curriculum. That's hugely important for the top universities. For medics, you're saying you did this in a lesson and then you did some work experience or some voluntary work or more practical for medicine or veterinary medicine or dentistry. For the academic subjects, I want to see that you took an interest and you followed your interest beyond the curriculum. Ideas to help you? The library and also the online library. Hugely important that you start to access that. The VLE, lots of articles available, things that your teachers may share. We have lots of magazine subscriptions that I talked about in Reach Sessions 1 and Sessions 2. JSTOR, excellent, and you'll use that at university as well. Reading lists available from college or from universities. Google Books. Google and then click on more and look on books. You can often access parts of books that can give you an insight into what an article or a book might be about. I decided to read Anne Kiltie's research into muscle invasive bladder cancer. Now this is key, specific super curricular thinking. It doesn't need to be grand texts. It doesn't. Read a piece of research, read an article, read an introduction to a book. Fantastic. Lots and lots of historical, literary works have really succinct introductions. For example, this morning alone, I was reading the introduction to Frankenstein. Great, an introduction to a book, really succinct, easy to look over, particularly if you've got to interview. Specific examples, don't be general. I love the way we study Frankenstein. I like the fact that we study poetry. I love the fact that we did Richard III. I like the fact that we do Russia. I enjoy the fact that we look at rocks in geology. I want more specific than that. What rock in geology? What area of geography? What was it about that lesson, that subject, that law lesson? What was it? Be specific. Talk about a lesson, talk about something really specific. The admissions tutor can then think, aha, they think. They weren't just sitting in lessons, sleeping behind their eyes. What time is break? I'd really like a snack. I'd like to look at what's going on social media. No, you were in lessons, focused in thinking and querying. Don't be afraid of a challenge as well. That's what you can see from this imaginary student, that they did something quite complex. Even if they didn't understand all the research, you can say, as a result of this, I decided to read this research and I found it too complex. So I decided to read this article which helped me understand this. That's great. Show me specific examples. We've then got some really specific science, which looks at DNA repair. And then this is what we learn about the student. They engage with what they learn and they are searching for more. That is fantastic. We have seen that interest in class, but it wasn't enough. They chose to attend HE+. Because of that, they followed their interest and read something. They were fascinated by it. They looked at something specific and they're looking forward to the future and what it might lead to. Okay, let's have a look at an art subject. History, again, completely fictional. I've always loved history. When I was 7 years old, I read all of horrible histories and loved the way it made history so funny. Since then, I have always known I wanted to study history at university. At A-level, history has fascinated me because in lessons we've learned about the accession of Henry VII. We've also learned about the formation of the English Church under Henry VIII. And reading Access to History has really helped me develop independence in considering the way we think about history from different political perspectives. So there are a few things here that are good and can definitely be improved. What have we learned about the students? Let's look at the positives first of all. We have learned that they read Access to History. They enjoy the lessons, so accession of Henry VII and the English Church under Henry VIII. They read beyond the subject, but we don't quite know whether they just took out the book from the library and didn't read it. Also, we know that they have independence, but we don't really have evidence of that. We can see that they think about different political perspectives, but we don't know which ones they're talking about. There are also a couple of issues here. There are grammar issues at the beginning. Make sure that if you are writing your personal statement, you get someone with good English skills to check over your horrible histories. If you send off your personal statement with errors, universities will not look kindly upon it. And particularly if you are going for an essay-based subject. If you haven't done any essay skills and you haven't written anything as an essay form since you finished GCSEs, that's not a problem at all. Mathematicians and deep physicists have that struggle perhaps, but we are there to help you. Get people to check it over. As I said, your subject tutors, your personal tutor and us in the careers team. Show it to loads of different people and get it checked over by someone you know who can check over your grammar, spelling and apostrophes. We don't want to make errors at this stage. The difficulty with this one is we actually don't know that the student is independent and we don't know that they have thought about the political perspectives. I would much prefer it if the student talked about Henry VII and then showed me specific things that they had thought about Henry VII. Supercurricular can be a way of thinking. After a lesson on Henry VII about this, I was fascinated by the political situation in this area on this date. Be specific. You could talk about a lesson and what it made you think about, and that could be your whole personal statement. You didn't just sit in lessons sleeping behind your eyes. Let's have a look at this. The reason I love history is because I have always found myself drawn to understanding more about the past. Unfortunately, lots and lots of people have read horrible histories, and the fact that you enjoyed reading them when you were younger is fantastic. But what admissions tutors may well want to see instead is that you love it now. You might want to say, as this student has said, they have always been drawn to understanding about the past. It's also a more academic way than saying that you just love horrible histories because they're so funny. When studying Henry VII's reign, so this is the first thing. specific, something from lessons, an example that the admissions tutor can hold on to. I found that while I was fascinated by the beginning of the Tudor dynasty, I was also intrigued by the queries over his legitimacy and his claim to the throne. You enjoyed the lessons, but you wanted more. You did the supercurricular thinking. And that's what I'd like to see. This is a fantastic example. Access to history, short texts designed for A-level students, not vastly academic and way beyond you. They are designed for people in your position. Textbooks might be the same. What a great idea. Use your physics textbook, use your history textbook, a law textbook, an English literature study guide. The other thing about that is you can look over an access to history book or the chapter you might be talking about the night before an interview. And that's a tip. Make sure that whatever you put in your personal statement, you have read in case they ask you about it at interview in December. You'll need to remember it. And also that you might want to mention a chapter or an article. Article is much shorter, or a chapter of a book is a lot easier than talking about an encyclopedia. And then talking about what the access to history made you think about, which was interesting in both analysing the way Henry consolidated his power through both foreign and domestic policies. This talks about a relatively straightforward book in a really interesting way. The books and the articles you choose don't have to be super academic or really challenging. They could be something that is designed for an A-level student just like you. That is brilliant. But what the student has done with it is really exciting to read as an admissions tutor. I can see that student is fascinated by the way Henry consolidated power. He kept his power through his policies, both foreign and domestic. That's the kind of thing I want to see. I can see that student enjoys history. However, I found this lacked the depth I wanted, so I decided to read Tudor England by John Guy. Now, this is a real drive to find out more. This is where we look at a very academic student who's then chosen to study a really meaty text. This is designed for A-levels, but also undergraduates and graduates. This is a big text, and you probably want to talk about just a chapter or a couple of pages. If you have an interest, follow it. You could just talk about one page. Don't say the pages, but you could say it was when he talked about the way the foreign policy of this state went into this state, and then make a note somewhere of what pages you read so you can look them over before an interview. So you enjoyed the more nuanced view he took of the strengths and weaknesses of the Tudor government, as well as his detailed look at the economic factors in the politics of the period from 1485, particularly his policy of, and then you go on to talk about it. Again, you can see the student had an interest, followed the interest, read something, thought about it. I can see real enjoyment of the subject. That is the kind of thing that universities will want to see in you. What do we notice about this one? This student is a first-generation student and hasn't always considered university. That's brilliant. Let's have a look. Having not come from an academic family, I didn't think that studying beyond A-levels was for me. This changed when I was reading Frankenstein. I found Mary Shelley's Gothic prose so amusing, and her heroes, Walton and Frankenstein, so overdramatic that I realised that studying literature might be my passion. When comparing this 19th century text with the modern, more broodingly sinister Never Let Me Go, I found Robert Kidd's article in E! Magazine helped me consider the nature of dystopia, as both novels query how we can move so easily between the sublime and the horrific, with human hubris the cause of destruction. Because of this initial interest, I decided to do a MOOC in dystopian fiction through history, which added depth to my initial knowledge. You can see this student didn't always think about university. Their parents may not have gone to university, and it may just be a very recent thing that they found English literature is their study of passion. And this is great. All the student is talking about is two texts they studied at sixth form. You study these texts in lessons, but you can see the supercurricular thinking again. Because of your enjoyment of the lessons, you then read an E! Magazine article, something we subscribe to as a college and you can access through the library VLE. Those articles are ideal. The law review, the economics review, the English review, we as a college subscribe to hundreds of magazines. And again, you could check that really easily the night before an interview. Also, of course, MOOCs. Don't pay for the certificates, do the MOOC. That's the kind of thinking we would want to see. Do something free, find an article. That's the thing that admissions tutors will think, that's the student. Something sparked their interest. This is the kind of student we want. Now I'm going to go through some phrases to give you ideas. I would suggest you don't copy these, but have a look at them, and you can pause as I go through if you wish. As the first person in my family to apply for university, be honest. Lots of universities are looking for students who might be the first generation to apply for university. It doesn't matter if you wanted to apply for university for years or if it's a recent thing. Universities are looking for students of incredibly high caliber, regardless of background. Having missed a part of secondary school because I was unwell, I found A-levels. Now, if you have experienced hardship, including mental or physical illness, that is fine. Universities want to know about you. If, as I mentioned in the previous recording, if you don't have as many GCSEs, if they didn't go as well as they might have done, that is not a problem. Universities are looking for students who are resilient, who are successful, even if things have been tough in the past. That's not a problem. And universities now are incredibly supportive of mental and physical health issues. There should be no reason that you wouldn't apply because of any barrier that you might face. Don't see it as a negative. Universities may well be in touch with you to offer you extra support. Although I was always academic at school, I initially struggled with the demands of fast-track maths, but it was through workshops and pushing myself that I found I loved imaginary numbers and the creativity in methods of maths. Now, this is really important. If you're doing some really tough A-levels, you may well have struggled at points. I know that lots of students struggle in those early months and may do incredibly badly in comparison with GCSEs. A-levels are a massive step up from GCSEs. And if you found that step up was huge, that is fine. Universities don't necessarily want someone who took the easy way through. If you got through a struggle, what can you show me that you did? You love maths because you had to work at it. You love essay writing and history because at first it did not come naturally. The academic style needed for this subject was hard and it took some getting used to. That's fine. What do I see about you? I can see that you went to workshops, that you pushed yourself, you didn't give up. And through that, I can see that you are driven and successful. When we were in lockdown, I took the opportunity to go on an online study day at the University of. Now, this is something I mentioned in previous sessions. Go on university virtual tours, go on an online study day, look on impact on the portal, at opportunities or webinars. I watched a webinar on, I watched a TED Talk on, I looked at the Maths YouTube channel of, I watched Crash Course History and. Show me what you did. It can be online. It doesn't have to be books necessarily. It might be an academic in their subject talking. Keep a record of what you watch, what you access, and what you thought about it. That could be the basis of some really exciting supercurricular thinking. Another useful phrase. Although I thought I wanted to study, I quickly realized that. That's okay. You can change your mind. I have had students who come to me with their personal statement in September, and I've read it and said, I think you might be applying for the wrong subject. I had a student a few years ago who was applying for a science subject, a broad science subject. And I said to them, I actually think from your personal statement that you really love geology. You want to do earth sciences or geology. He then went away and did some very rapid research into courses at university and then realized that what he had actually written about in his personal statement was that. That's fine. You can enjoy studying different subjects and be not sure about what you want to study. I always thought I wanted to study medicine, but actually it was when I was studying psychology that I realized that I wanted to be a psychologist. They will look at the progression of your learning, and then you could say, I realize that I want to now study psychology because of the way the synaptic pathways, the research into child development. It was after a biology lesson on something that I decided I wanted to find out more, so I took out a textbook. That's great. I was in a lesson, then I decided this, so I did something because of it. And now for the medics. Having done Lean On Me in my first term at sixth form, during the COVID pandemic, I decided to volunteer at a local care home. I decided to deliver food too. It's very hard to do practical things at the moment, particularly if you're looking at the more practical subjects where it's a career decision. They want to see that you've really tested that interest. Universities will know. If all you've done is one day of voluntary work or even none, that's not a problem. Show other ways that you have done things. Perhaps you watched a TED Talk or a documentary about critical care, or you read articles about the treatment of, or you've looked at the way different research is being done into vaccination programs. Universities will know, if you are a medic, a vet, or a dentist, that your voluntary work may well have been curtailed during this time. Everyone is in the same boat. Don't worry about that. You can still show your interest by what you have done, read, and thought about. It was when I found a blog on Twitter on geology that I realized, so I started to research. After a sociology lesson, I realized I was fascinated by the class system, so I went away and read or did something. I struggled to make my mind up between law and literature because I enjoy the way both. So in order to test my interest, I read, or I did a MOOC. I read an article about. Secondly, extracurricular. How on earth do I bring an extracurricular? I know that my personal statement should be 80 to 90% academic interests for those top academic universities. So how do I bring in my part-time work or anything else that's going on in my life that I really enjoy and is an important part of my life and my studies? Let's have a little look at extracurricular. Although I thrive doing my academic A-levels, I find I have the capacity to do more. That's a really useful phrase. Use your own words, of course. But what you're saying is, I enjoy my academic A-levels, but they aren't everything about me. I have other things that I spend my time and I enjoy doing. I'm in the process of completing Duke of Edinburgh Silver. I also take time to have balance and find that my sport is an essential part of my life. Although I excel at my subject, I enjoy playing sport at a competitive level and play rugby. You're part of the college's hockey academy. I find this drives me to be a better academic. Now, this might mean you have less time to do reading and research. We need to make sure that you say that this does balance your academic studies and actually healthy body, healthy mind. Why would we not be involved in sport or culture or music if that's available to you? Alongside your academic A-levels, you might well have something that you do that takes up a huge amount of your time. And we support students who are elite athletes who are also applying to the top universities in the world. This year alone, I've had a student who was competing for their country at a sport, and it took 20 hours a week of training for them to sustain that. They were also doing 3 academic A-levels, which meant that they were often tired and did have less time to do incredibly detailed, wider reading. But it did show that they had capacity. If you're going to get very good A-level grades, as well as competing at an international level, that's something that we do need to put in your personal statement. And that might even go really early on in your personal statement, because that's going to have a big impact upon your studies. If you're able to balance that kind of competitive level sport and academic A-levels, that is definitely notable. It won't get you into university, but if you can get those A-levels and manage your competitive sporting life, that shows resilience and a drive. What about if you have unusual home circumstances? In caring for a family member, I have learned to be resilient and driven in my studies. And that's really important that universities know about it. You are amazing in balancing your studies with that. And the universities will want to know that about you so they can support you in that. For some universities, they may offer you a different conditional offer depending on your circumstances. Also, if you live independently from your parents and you are perhaps in local authority care or you live without your family's involvement. Having lived independently from my parents, I have had to be driven in my attitude as I've had to earn an income to fund myself. This has meant that I have to balance my academic studies with a part-time job or working for a certain number of hours a week. And again, this is really important that you tell us and you write it in your personal statement. We want to make sure you have a comprehensive program of support from your personal tutor, your teachers, your director of studies, and us to make sure that we can help you achieve your potential. Be really specific about those examples. If in doubt, go back to the ones I showed you earlier. Your personal statement for the academic university should be about 80 to 90% academic. You talk about your subjects, perhaps in turn talking about what things you've done to research and follow your interest in each of those subjects. Or perhaps you've got one subject that you love and most of your personal statement is about maths. That's absolutely fine. And then you might talk about how your other subjects help you love your maths even more. For medics, vets and dentists, this will be more of a practical way that you followed your interests. I want to see the progression of your thinking. Number one, the initial spark of interest in a subject, in an HE+, in a TED Talk, in an article, a book you read, in a maths workshop you went to. Why? Why did it interest you? Be specific. Show me you. Don't tell me that you're good at your subject. Show me. Show me. Don't tell me. Show me. What did you do about it? You liked it? It interested you? What did you do? Did you try something new? Did you read a book, an article, looked at YouTube? There are so many opportunities that you can do, even now when you aren't at sixth form college on site. The library. Ask your teachers for their ideas. Can they suggest something, a book, an article, or something to do? What did you think about what you read, did, researched, or found out? Did you enjoy it? You could also say, I found it really frustrating, or I found it far too complicated. It was way beyond me. Don't be afraid to say you found it too easy, too hard. You needed something to help bridge the gap. Or you discovered a new subject entirely. You'd been thinking you were going to study law, and actually it was when you were doing this other thing that you realized you loved, politics. Not too many examples. Do not list. Not only because it doesn't show what you thought about those 1, 2, or 3 examples, but also I don't want a long list of what you've read. I want you to talk about perhaps 3 examples through your personal statement and show me your thinking. The other danger of doing a list is you'd have to look at every single one of those the night before an interview. Remember, you will need to know the things you have talked about. So keep a record of what you have read and researched and your thoughts. Now let's go through some questions you might want to ask. I don't want to apply to Oxbridge or be a medic, vet or dentist. What should I do? If you don't want to apply for Oxbridge and have found other courses, great. We want to give you options. We want you to find the right course at a university you will love and a teaching style that you'll really enjoy. If you don't apply through early application on October the 15th, you will go through application in January and start submitting your UCAS from November onwards. And that is what most students do. I would like to apply for Oxbridge or to be a medic, vet or dentist, but my grades won't be good enough by September. No problem. There are lots of options. We support sixth form college students for as long as they need after they have left us. We run sessions for students who have left the sixth form where you come in and get career support for applying to university on a gap year. It's not a problem at all. You might want to wait for the following year. Take a gap year and apply with your results in hand. That means that for the next year, you can concentrate on getting those A-levels. They are called advanced for a reason. They are tough. You can contact us on results day and we will support you through the application then, either through early application to Oxford, Cambridge, be a medic, a vet or a dentist. That's great. We'll help get you ready for that. And you can also apply through normal application to the other top universities in the UK or elsewhere. There is no rush. I'm not sure what I want yet. No problem. We can arrange a one-to-one with you to talk through your options, including work experience, gap years, apprenticeships, and work. There's no rush. We have a team to help you, and we all have different specialities. Keep your options open at the moment. There are dedicated sessions and taught sessions on apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships, how to write a CV, and lots else besides. Those will all happen, either virtually or in person, and we have a comprehensive system of support as the year goes on. Can I apply for universities and apprenticeships? Yes. We would suggest doing both because apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships are very competitive. The same goes for conservatoires if you're applying for music, and you can also apply to universities for music. So don't be afraid to keep your options open in that way as well. What about general careers queries? Contact the careers team. We are all still working, even if we are doing it from distance. And from next week, you can have a one-to-one if you book in with the careers team in a socially distanced way on site. But we can also do it virtually and online. Feel free to email the careers team if you need any support or guidance. What happens if I get rejected from Oxbridge or for medicine, veterinary medicine or dentistry? Is the door closed? If you really want to go to Oxbridge or for medicine, etc., you can reapply. These are top universities and very competitive. It may be that you don't get in the first time round, and that's not a problem at all. We have more and more students in this position. You can even apply for the same universities again with your results in hand. You will have the experience of going through the process already, and you'll know what you're aiming for. You won't be worrying about those academic A-levels because they will be done. That's fantastic. And we have more and more students who are very successful applying on a gap year. That's fine too. You can apply this year and tell your universities that you'd like to defer, what we call a deferred entry. Your universities know that you are going to wait a year and have a year off to work or learn or study or just take a break. Or you can wait, not apply this year, take a gap year when you know you don't have A-levels to worry about, and either of those are fine. What if I do better than I expected and I would like to reapply after results? No problem. We're available on results day, both virtually and in person, and we will assist you both on the day and in the days afterwards. We will also talk you through adjustment, which is where you might have got better grades than you were predicted because of all that hard work that you put in. So that's been a pretty dense video with lots of information and ideas. I hope it's been useful. Feel free to go back and look over it if you need. Before you have a one-to-one with myself or your Reach teacher or the other members of the careers department, it would be a really good idea to make sure you have watched the Reach sessions that are on the YouTube channel. So you've got a full understanding of the process of applying and how to go about research, because those might well answer lots of your queries. As I said, careers lessons and UCAS apply start the week after next. So they start soon. So keep an eye on your emails because those will be beginning very soon to help take you through the process of using UCAS. I hope you found it useful and see you soon.